What's going on, you guys? Charles here from the Traders Corner. Today, we're just going to be doing some quick analysis on NAS 100. But also in this video, I'm going to be talking about the one person I would learn from if I could start my trading career over again. So let's stop talking, get right into it. So today we're looking at NAS 100. What are we looking at? First and foremost, we're going to be looking at the daily, right? And just understanding where we are on the daily. Got an understanding where we are as it relates to the higher time frames and the overall swing in the market. So first and foremost, we can see that previously last week we were in this premium area. If you go body to body, we're in that premium area. If you go wick to wick, you know, we're still in that premium area. It's just we were in that premium area just for a bit longer, right? So last week we were in this premium area. Now, what is this premium area denoted to me as? Well, just above this 50 level, right? And if we, again, pull this on real quick, and then I'll just quickly mark on that 50 level, and then we'll delete this. So if we look at this just without the fit tool, just looking at price as it stands, well, what can we see? We can see a clear downtrend. Why we say we have a downtrend, right? Push down, all this good jazz, right? That's why we would say we have a clear downtrend. And just regardless, I don't care who you learn from, this is kind of like a very general rule that people have. Unless you take out this guy who started this downtrend, you can't really say for real whether or not the trend has changed, right? And that's kind of why it's hard to call bottoms and call tops every single time. You might get lucky a few times. Like, I know, for example, I myself got lucky in and around this time of the market. I can't say that I would ever do it again in terms of calling this bottom, but you're generally not always going to get that lucky, and that's why people generally say the trend is your friend. And the person I'm going to tell you that I would learn from if I were to go back, he says the same thing. As much as he can be sometimes counter trend or counter to what everybody else is thinking, he always looks at the overall trend and says to himself, well, what is the overall trend doing? Let me try to get on the side of that. Now, let me try to get on the side of that in quality areas, but let me try to get on the side of that overall trend. So if that overall trend is down, two, like I said, we were in a premium area of that overall downtrend last week, right? So again, I was saying, depending on how you draw it, we were in that overall, premium area for either all of the week or just the beginning to basically not Friday, right? Because what happened was on Thursday, well, I think this was Monday, yep, Monday, March 6th, right? So here we're in the premium area, here we're in the premium area. Well, we just break down below it. Here we break back into it, but basically what I'm saying though is you could have traded from the previous premium area on this day, right? We just finished below it. Here we break back into it, and then on Thursday, obviously that gives you another opportunity to be trading above that 50 level. Now, that being said, what am I thinking that we might do now that we have dropped below this 50 level? Well, I was identifying us to pull below this swing low, and now I'm seeing if we could also basically pop below this swing low as well. Now, that would take a little bit more, but it would give us the ability for us to pop lower, maybe get a gap in price for us to pull back into, right, before heading lower again. That's what I'm anticipating. I'm not saying it's going to happen, right? Also, what could happen is we could just on Monday turn around and head back above this high and really head back above this high as well. Start to try to head back above this high as well, right? Into this area over here. That definitely could also happen. So that being said, just going to come into the market and see where we're at as the session, not as the session opens, but as I start to see the session, because at that point, I don't sit down at the charts until like 4:30, 5-ish, in terms of looking at the charts, just like taking an eye at them. And then I really don't start trading until 7, all that kind of stuff. So that being said, the market would have already been moving. So we're going to see how it moves on that day, on Monday. But we'll just quickly go down to the 4-hour and we'll go through the rest of this just in terms of identifying previous swings or previous pieces of price that I think might be pertinent going into the next session. So here we can see previous session's highs, which obviously I'm always going to want to mark that on. And then we have the session before that highs, right? Now I'm marking the highs because, again, I'm thinking that we're bearish biased. I think this bearish bias is going to continue, all that good stuff, right? Drop to the 15-minute. What can we see? Well, we can see this gap actually got poked into here, right? Same with this one over here, but this one has not been. So that's the first one I'm going to identify. This is quote unquote open, all right? But this is very close to where price currently is trading, right? So we're going to again see how price is moving, because we could move a few different ways at this point. But that all being said, not at this point, you know, on Sunday when the market opens, it is Sunday, but like when the market opens later today. That being said, I can see this set of relative equal lows here. So I'm going to identify that as an area for us to try to possibly run down into. Again, we have this previous session highs here, and I'm just going to type that in. Previous session's highs. Okay, and again, we can look to see if we can pull back into this area and see if we get any type of reaction from there. Now, we don't have to. Again, like I said, it's a very close area. But that being said, what can we see about this area? Well, look here. This is where I think we all have a sensitive price point, right? And I really just marked the gap in the area, but really, you can go all the way up into, you know, essentially whatever side you're looking at in terms of the gap. So if you're looking at a bearish gap, right, generally speaking, your open, right, is going to be a bit higher than your close. This is just one of those times where we set up a gap with two bullish candles. So your close is actually the highest point. That's kind of what I care about in terms of the body and in terms of this gap being violated. Right now, again, I marked on these sensitive price points, or what I think will be the sensitive price points, but the actual gap itself is here between these two wicks, right? These two wicks right here, this wick and this wick. Now, here's what I think will be those sensitive price points, and even within those sensitive price points, we actually have a gap here and a tiny one here. So it's not in it, but it's right above, it's right below it. And we have this one actually within those sensitive price points. It's gonna look to see if we can get some pullback, right? Now, I'm gonna again see how we're moving coming into the market, but I'm gonna identify this set of sweeping lows as a possible target. You know, ideally, what will we see? Pull back into this area to maybe pull back down lower into here, and bounce, and really shoot up into this area identified to the left. Relative equal highs here, broken above. We got some liquidity to take. We got a good area for us to pull into, and there, I think I would be a lot more comfortable looking for sell side opportunities. Now, again, this is all very relative. I have no idea how the market is moving in terms of the Sunday open and the Monday trading that that happens before I sit down at the charts. So we'll see what happens when that happens. But this is kind of what I identified at this point, and we'll come back to it later. Now, I want to quickly tell you about the one person that if I were a newer trader, I would be learning from, besides us over at TTC, obviously, but the one person that I would be learning from is ICT. Now, I want to give a quick, breakdown of ICT, because there's a lot of stuff being, put out on the internet around him and all this kind of stuff. And I think this goes for anybody, not just ICT. I'm not saying that he is, basically Jesus reborn or the Messiah, or whatever, whatever your religious, leanings are. I'm not saying he is that for trading, right? That's not the case. I do think that he has had a lot of experience in the markets, identifying a lot of different price patterns. And very importantly, I do think that he understands some important parts of how price actually moves. Now, there's a lot of stuff that gets brandished out about him in terms of saying he says this is how the banks trade, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. I don't think he's ever said this is how the banks trade. All he's ever said is these are the patterns in the algorithm. right? And I think that that's super important to understand. It's understanding that this market is driven by algorithms, not only by the people who trade it, i.e. the big players like the big banks, the big hedge funds, all this kind of stuff make use of algorithms, even if they use a very discretionary approach like us. Maybe if they use technical analysis, for example, because they're so large, they have to move such large positions, they often employ algorithms to actually position for them or to dispense their positions into the market to make sure that they're getting good prices. They just might pass those prices into the algorithm, right? So for example, not only do you have those big banks or big players who might use algorithms to trade, but you also have the actual just how the market functions and prices itself and offers bids and offers asks. That's also driven largely by algorithms. Now, he spent a lot of time, and I think what a lot of people forget is it's not only the time that you spent in the market, but it's the periods in which you've been in the market as well, right? And that might sound like the same thing, but what do I mean by that? Well, if you listen to ICT, like I said, he's been in the market for about 30 years. So if you clock that back, that takes you to about the 90s. And that's really when the advent of all these algorithms started, right? Not started, but like really started to hit their stride and really started to get powerful. They really started in like the late 70s to the 80s. There's a lot of books on this and like history on this, because like people talk a lot about how the 87 crash was really exacerbated by the newfound algorithms that people were using in the markets, right? Or programs that people were using in the markets. But algorithms, programs, they really started to hit their stride in the 90s, right? And that's also when a lot of the exchanges started to employ algorithms for pricing, offering all this good stuff, offering bids, offering or ask, all this good stuff, right? And so because of that, not only does he have 30 years of experience, but he has 30 years of experience to the most recent way in which the market has moved. Now, I'm not saying that if you're in the market in the 50s or the 60s or the 70s, that there's not something valuable that you might be able to give to us in terms of teaching. But the way that he has learned has been solely around how algorithms move. Now, he's learned other stuff and all this kind of stuff, in terms of like different ways to trade, different technical, pieces of information, and he'll tell you that himself. Like a lot of his stuff is based on another guy who's kind of had some experience in the market much before him, but he started breaking it all down to how does the algorithm move, how does the algorithm price itself, all this kind of stuff. And the algorithms, let's just be real, they are the most important movers of the markets. So that's who I would be learning from if I could go back and start 5 years ago. And so any newer traders out there, I would definitely recommend checking out his stuff. I'm gonna link his stuff in the description, and I'm gonna put a card in the video itself as well. But yeah, definitely check out his stuff. Definitely check out his mentorship from 2022. It's very helpful. He breaks and here's the thing, he has a lot of different ways to trade, and he breaks one down in a series long video, a series of videos, couple 20 something, like a lot of videos long, and you get a lot of good information to learn a lot of good topics and ways to trade from. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope it provides some value to you guys, and join us again next time. Thank you.